From the headquarters of Telesat English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Emike Omoli. We begin in Venezuela, where a group of migrants have returned home under what the government calls the Homeland Return Plan. 89 people who had fled to Peru asked to be brought back. They say things were not necessarily better abroad and could even be harsher at times. Venezuela's foreign ministry says the government helped them to return. Well, as the plane touched down in Caracas, the Venezuelan nationals began singing the national anthem. Our correspondent Madeline Garcia was there and says they were welcomed with hugs, laughter and some tears. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has visited the country's mint to launch a new national gold savings project. The site is where the new currency is being printed. It's part of the government's ongoing economic recovery strategy. Venezuelans who can afford it are being encouraged to invest in gold to help protect their savings. He added that a team of specialists is working to return Venezuela to prosperity. The precious metal will be sold in small amounts from September 11th.
The objective is peace, the economic happiness of the Venezuelan family. We have to achieve it with new rules for the game. The new rules of the game show that they are fair, viable, necessary, and pertinent. They have been received with hope and renewed happiness by a people who have endured the worst of the economic war, the speculation, the criminal robbery, and the permanent assault with prices.
The foreign currency conversion system decriminalizes the use of the dollar.
The conversion has already started this week. We will be holding 3 trials. The National Constituent Assembly passed a law a week and a half ago to decriminalize the use of dollar as an international currency. And from there, we have created a unique and fluctuating exchange market system, which after 3 rounds gave a value of 60.85 sovereign bolívares per dollar on Wednesday.
Maduro also announced the creation of a new Ministry of Domestic Trade to monitor the new currency. He's appointed William Contreras, former minister under Hugo Chavez, to head the new ministry, and he explained why.
We will organize a powerful Ministry of Internal Trade that allows us to organize all networks of distribution and prices, and allow us to install and implement the new Economic Recovery, Growth and Prosperity Program. I have decided to appoint as the first and new Minister of Internal Trade and Economics, with great experience, graduated in Venezuela, who was Minister under Commander Hugo Chavez, who have experienced knowledge and honesty. This is William Contreras, who will be the minister and will carry out the trade balance program.
Colombia has confirmed it will withdraw from the Union of South American Nations within 6 months. President Iván Duque made the announcement. Colombia's is the latest in a series of withdrawals from UNICEF. 5 other countries have already suspended their membership. President Duque slammed the organization as a tool of Venezuelan dictatorship. UNICEF was created a decade ago by late Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez, who wanted to challenge U.S. influence in the region.
Today,
with precise instructions, our foreign minister sent UNASUR a letter where we denounce the constituent treaty of that entity and specify that in 6 months, our withdrawal from this organization will be effective.
We'll take a short break now. Back soon.
We are always there tracking the news. We seek equality. We defend the truth. It's a hard job, but we are not alone. We count on a new ally.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along and find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Saturdays, only on Telesur. With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has started his week-long Latin American tour in Chile. Chilean President Sebastián Piñera and senior government officials received the Spanish PM. Prime Minister Sanchez will continue on to Bolivia on Tuesday to meet with President Evo Morales. A deal between Mexico and the United States is being held by Mexico's president-elect. Andrés Manuel López Obrador has welcomed the agreement. It allows both nations to renegotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement. Among other changes, it pressures Canada to accept new terms on auto trade. The accord has come after 13 months of negotiations. Meanwhile, Mexico's outgoing president had this to say.
Let's remember that practically 80% of trade Mexico does abroad. It does with North America, and that explains the relevance and transcendent to clinch a deal that will be beneficial for the three parties involved.
There will be a free trade agreement between Mexico and the United States, independent of what happens with the negotiation with Canada. Of course, we're moving forward with the negotiation with Canada. It's what we want. It's our conviction. But the good news today is that the uncertainty is no longer whether there will be a free trade agreement or not.
Staying in Mexico, authorities there have rescued at least 22 immigrants in the southern state of Chiapas. They were kidnapped by human traffickers on a promise of helping them reach the United States. Pablo Perez brings us more from Mexico City.
Mexican authorities of the state of Chiapas have informed of the finding of 22 migrants that were lost, and well, now they know that they were kidnapped by the people that promised them to lead them through the Mexican territory all the way over to the northern border, the border with the United States. It seems that these people, these human traffickers, or coyotes as they are usually known, well, they took them, put them in a van, and then rode away to an undisclosed point where they were held captive with the intention of charging a ransom for their freedom to their families in Central America. It seems that most of them are from Honduras, Salvador, and Guatemala, but there's at least one of the migrants coming all the way from Ecuador. And Well, they were found because one of them, the 23rd one, got away while their captors were distracted, and then got to the Mexican authorities, leading them to the place they were being held captive. This is a very, very common situation in the Mexican-Guatemalan border, and let's remember that every year around 500,000 Central and South American migrants come through the southern border of Mexico, most of them with the intention of going all the way to the border with the United States.
Pablo Perez reporting there. Well, relatives and friends of police shooting victims have brought traffic to a standstill in Argentina's capital. They took to the streets of Buenos Aires to protest against what they describe as trigger-happy police. Holding portraits of loved ones, they marched through the city to Plaza de Mayo. Some protesters even clashed with drivers. One attorney claims that there have been hundreds of cases of police shootings so far under the current Argentinian administration.
Because we know that the easy trigger is a tool in the backpack of any government that rules a society divided by classes, and a reform of the forces won't end it. In 721 days of government, 725 cases of easy trigger execution and deaths in prison. Obviously, more than a case per day. This has never been achieved by any other former government.
Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, has more.
On Monday, protesters marched all throughout the country against what they see as the police's trigger-happy practices, which have been on the rise over the past few months. They're seen as a tool of Mauricio Macri's government to swiftly repress specific young people, usually under 25 years old, from low-income neighborhoods. It was heartbreaking to see so many mothers demanding justice while holding pictures of their murdered children, hoping that no one else will have to die.
Edgardo Esteban reporting there. 94% of Peruvians polled want the public prosecutor Pedro Chavarri to resign after a string of corruption allegations. More in this report.
Another day and another new corruption accusation against public prosecutor Pedro Chavarri. The latest is that he plagiarized 70% of his university thesis. In addition, it is said that his marks were manipulated so he could be appointed as public prosecutor.
He was appointed through a special process that's just unusual. He was appointed by a corrupt body in a process that's unfair.
According to the Legal Defense Institute, Chavarri is in position as public prosecutor makes corruption possible. That's because he is himself part of a mob network in the judiciary, as the audio scandal proved.
His talks with Inostroza Pariachi, one of the main actors in this network, not only show a close and friendly relationship, but also the way they behave, exchanging favors and creating a good environment for their own businesses.
But in spite of all of these accusations, the Peruvian Congress still has to begin a process against him. According to some analysts, the reason for this is his closeness with the Popular Force Party and allies.
The Popular Force has still a lot to clarify. Obviously, they want a prosecutor that favors them in corruption cases.
Odebrecht's alleged undue funding is a massive scandal and it has to be clarified.
Just like 94% of the population, Peru's president, Martín Vizcarra, does not back Chavarri. Those numbers are from a public poll by Ipsos.
He should be fired. Why? Because of corruption. There is so much corruption, so much fraud in Peru.
He is a corrupt, and he cannot be a role model, and so everyone in the prosecutor's office should be replaced.
Hanging over Chavarri are cases of money laundering and other corruption offenses linked to the former president, congressmen and judges, cases that Peruvians fear could lead to impunity.
Hundreds of taxi drivers in Guatemala are furious about Uber. They're demanding better regulation. Drivers blocked roads in Guatemala City to protest against the ride-sharing app, which they accuse of unfair competition. They want Uber drivers to comply with the same legal requirements that they are subject to, like being registered as taxis. The indigenous Maya Quechua people in Guatemala are demanding the government regulate the Oxec hydroelectric plant. They say it has destroyed their land.
This is part of the forest destroyed near the Chambon River. Everything has been deforested by the Oshek Hydroelectric Company, according to leaders of the Sakta community in Alta Verapaz.
We're currently in the place where this company, Oshek, is chopping down the trees. They're harming the environment near the Chambon River. So here's the evidence of their illegal actions.
The illegal logging started in 2013 when the local company started 2 hydroelectric projects. Right now they have already started the 3rd one in this place.
These trees have been here for thousands of years and nobody was cutting them. You can see the evidence here. I'm not creating a fiction.
The local leaders also denounced that the authorities continue to instruct them not to sow near the river, but the company Oshek has constantly violated this rule. The destruction of this part of the forest is affecting over 100 communities who rely on the Chambon River for their daily water supply. They are demanding the government to take immediate action to prevent larger sections of the forest being destroyed.
There are supposed to be state institutions defending the trees, like the Ministry of the Environment and its institutes, but so far there has been no action coming from them.
Please stop cutting the trees on the riverbank. This water is our life.
The population of the locality of Chambon rejected the building of hydroelectric projects in their land through a referendum in 2017. They now reject that this private company is not willing to hear their voice.
The US embargo against Cuba has cost the Caribbean island roughly $135 billion. That's according to a recent report. Let's get more on that.
Here, in the streets of Cuba, the mere mention of the North American blockade is enough to provoke anger about the embargo and its impact. Cubans are demanding its end.
We have trouble in medicine. We have trouble in sports. The blockade echoes everywhere. The blockade affects the Cuban people in many ways, but we will come through because we have the strong will to get ahead with our own efforts.
Washington has also issued a travel alert advising US citizens to reconsider flying to Cuba. That, however, has not stopped these tourists from visiting Havana.
I love the opportunity to be able to come. It's been on a bucket list of mine for years, and I just relish this opportunity to be here.
I feel safe. I feel fine. The people are very nice.
Very safe, very fun, lots of culture. I would come back again.
The US State Department has even attempted to reduce their diplomats' stay in Cuba to just 1 year. International analyst Santiago Perez views all these moves as strategies to maintain the blockade.
Former Deputy Secretary of State Jordan Knight just published an article that says that his administration lies about 6 to 7 times a day, and I think that his so-called sonic attacks is an elaborated lie that seeks to dismantle the links that have been forged with the Obama administration.
According to a recent report from the Cuban Foreign Ministry, the U.S. blockade has cost the Caribbean country $4.2 billion between April 2017 and March 2018. This brings Cuba's total losses over 6 decades to $134.5 billion. On August 31st, the UN General Assembly will vote on a resolution that demands the end of the blockade.
Time now for another short break. We'll be back in a minute.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur. An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real lives. Saturdays, only on LSU.
Welcome back. A rally by the far-right Pegida party turned violent in Germany on Monday. One person was injured when anti-fascist protesters showed up at the rally. A fatal stabbing on Sunday led to these mass demonstrations by Pegida, which have turned violent for a second time. Over 1,000 people on both sides marched through Chemnitz amidst heavy police presence. The Israeli Defense Force has demolished the family home of a Palestinian teenager in retaliation for an attack over a month ago. 17-year-old Mohammed Dar Yusuf killed an Israeli in a Jewish settlement and was shot dead by police. Bulldozers demolished the home during a nighttime operation in an act of collective punishment. 6 people lived in the house. Former Vatican diplomat Archbishop Carlo Mario Vigano has called on Pope Francis to resign. Our correspondent Pablo Navarrete has more.
Pope Francis's trip to Ireland has been met with mass demonstrations against clerical abuse scandals that have taken place in Ireland. Pope Francis gave a mass on Sunday in front of hundreds of thousands and gave a speech where he addressed the abuse carried out by the Catholic Church personnel in Ireland and asked for an apology on behalf of the Church. However, he offered no practical solutions to address what had happened. His visit is the first to Ireland since 1979, and the reaction has been very different to that time when Pope John Paul II arrived. He was treated effectively like a rock star. Now, the abuse scandal in Ireland is one of various abuse scandals that have mired the Catholic Church around the world in countries like Chile, Australia and the United States. So the reaction this time in Ireland is much more muted to the Pope's visit, and people are angry at the scandals that have engulfed the Church. The openly gay Prime Minister of Ireland on Saturday gave a speech and urged the Pope to use his office and influence to deliver justice and to the victims and to the families and to the relatives, those who have suffered the abuse by the Catholic Church in Ireland.
Pablo Navarrete reporting there. Now it's time to bring you some of today's other stories from around the world.
To the International Criminal Court because
United Nations human rights experts say all parties involved in the Yemen war may be guilty of war crimes. In a report, they implicate the Yemeni government forces, the Saudi-led coalition and the Houthi fighters, all of whom they say played a part in civilian casualties. Experts will present their report to the UN Human Rights Council next month.
We support all efforts, including of the Special Envoy of the Secretary-General for Yemen, to cease hostilities, reach a sustainable and inclusive peace, and ensure accountability for serious violations and crimes. This conflict has to end. Civilians have suffered enough.
The opposition presidential candidate in the Maldives doesn't expect next month's election to be free and fair. Mohamed Soleh of the Moldavian Democratic Party is challenging incumbent President Abdullah Yamin, who imposed a state of emergency earlier this year. Speaking to residents, Soleh said that he is aware that President Yamin will try to rig the elections, but trusted the people to make the right decision. The election is due to take place on the 23rd of September. China is planning to scrap its controversial two-child policy, according to a state-run newspaper. According to the paper, a draft code is underway. The code is set to end a policy that has been enforced through fines and forced abortions. The Standing Committee of the National People's Congress is discussing the draft, which is set to be completed by 2020.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has rolled out prototype Ebola drugs as the death toll from the recent outbreak reaches 67. A dozen Ebola patients have been treated with the new drugs in Mangina. The new treatment was developed in the US and is the first therapeutic drug to be used in an ongoing Ebola epidemic in the DRC. The outbreak has killed 67 people so far out of the 105 cases reported in the eastern part of the country. We've come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for Telesur English. I'm Emiko Molu and thank you for watching.
Telesur brings you special interviews